26 excerpt from Tangled Roots, Women Work in the Globalization on the Tomato Trail. Statement from the book, or the point. The point this article is trying to get across is that the processing of the tomato cash crop is cultivated and supported by colonialism, sexism, racism, and capitalism. Most of the tomato production happens in Mexico and is transported into the United States. It is a very meticulous process and has many steps, including multiple checks of the tomatoes before and after transport into the U.S. The Mexicans that are working these jobs work in harsh conditions and are underpaid. They are having a hard time making a living due to their land being taken away by large corporations. There's also a division of labor between the men and women on the job site. While large monoculture agribusiness dominate tomato production in Mexico, campesinos who work seasonally for them cannot survive without also cultivating their own staple crops. As the case study of Empaque Santa Rosa, sorry if I said that wrong, the Mexican agribusiness shows the low wages of industrial agriculture are based on the assumption that workers will combine salaried work with subsistence agriculture. For the poorer indigenous migrant farm workers, this is becoming less possible as they must migrate to more and more harvests to survive as they lose access to arable land. So, it is becoming harder and harder for them to get land since they have little of it, and we keep taking. 4 key themes. The author uses 4 key themes to describe the tomato trail, along with using an ecological and gendered analysis. It's kind of the way that she describes it. The entire book is through the ecological and gendered analysis. That's how she sees it. The first of the 4 key themes is the production, distribution, and consumption of tomatoes. The second of the 4 key themes is the impact of work and the impact of the technology to get the tomato to our tables, stores, and restaurants. The third of the 4 key themes is the environmental and health issues that come with the production of tomatoes, for example, spraying the pesticides. Because as the workers are working in fields, planes are flying over and spraying those pesticides on them, and the plants, so they're breathing all that in. And the final of the 4 key themes is the cultural and sociological diversity. The women are seen as gentler and have the most work for the least compensation. So the women do the most because they have softer touch and they can handle the tomatoes better, pick them without damaging them, those things. Campesinos, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, means people of the land, peasant farmers. Empaque Santa Rosa, the Mexican agribusiness that produces tomatoes. NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement, an agreement between Canada, Mexico, and the United States that had a goal to eliminate all tariff and non-tariff barriers of trade and investment between these countries. Nimble fingers belong to young women decide which tomato goes where. So different colored tomatoes go different places. Nogales has a border control complex that checks all the trucks that are coming into the United States for drugs, truck fraud, and people looking to migrate to the United States. Monoculture, the cultivation of a single crop in a given area. This type of crop goes against any form of traditional crops in growing food, like reusing the same soil, which can cause diseases. The main concept of the tomato trail is that tomatoes were the first fruit produced for export. Since then, the U.S. has made hybrids of the tomato, making the original tomato almost extinct. As Mexico produces the tomatoes, they must abide by the strict regulations set in place by the FDA and USDA. This includes spraying pesticides and having to stop at many checkpoints to have the tomatoes checked. By spraying the pesticides, the indigenous people must endure being sprayed and breathing them in all day. The men do the packing, trucking, transporting, harder labor things. As for the women, they plant, pick, package, organize, and label the tomatoes because, again, they have those nimble fingers. So their tomatoes are not damaged. Although the women do most of the work, they receive the least compensation, as stated before. Between Mexico and the US and Canada, there is a monoculture. And this says, although in Mexico, tomatoes make up for almost 12% of the fruit and vegetable production, they take up only 0.5% of the area of the land. That's all that Mexico has. Main concepts. There is a division of labor in this work. Women do the planting, picking, sorting of the tomatoes. Women are considered gentler, so there is less damage to the crop. Men stack crates on flatbed trailers that they pull by tractor, then from field to packing plant. The USDA has installed its own inspectors within many Mexican agro-export plants to check the tomatoes before they are loaded onto the trailer trucks. Trucks carrying tomatoes are also stopped by inspectors at 4 checkpoints, so they have multiple checkpoints to make sure there's no smugglers, there's no drugs, there's no anything like that, and that the tomatoes are okay. These checkpoints do not necessarily check the tomatoes, but instead check for other possible cargo that can be smuggled within the trucks, such as drugs or Mexicans seeking illegal entry into the United States. Some questions. 1. How does the concept of gender fields relate to the division of labor? 2. Do you agree or disagree with how the tomato trail has been ran? 3. What would you do differently? 4. Do roles, ranks, rules, and resources influence this? And that is all. Thank you.